Well, the Great Recession may not officially be over, but our next guest says that doesn't mean we can expect a meaningful economic recovery anytime soon. We're going to get his official call on where we stand in this recovery cycle. Gary Shilling is the president of Gary Shilling and Company. He's predicting a quote-unquote long slog ahead. You don't hear slog too often on television these days, Gary. I want to ask you, we're kicking off the Fed's two-day meeting today. The question of unemployment seems to dominate, certainly in the headlines, certainly on Main Street. Where does unemployment have to get to before we start to see some of that stimulus being withdrawn?
Oh, I would think it'd have to drop to 8.5% at least, because that number is high by historical standards, and it's sort of the range the Obama administration said that was sort of the maximum if everything went wrong. And of course, they didn't say it was going to go to 10%. So I think you'd have to drop below 8.5%, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Employers are just cutting costs, and the way they're doing that in large part is just getting rid of people, spreading workers over more activities.
Well, when you say not anytime soon, we're coming up on the end of 2009 and planning for the year ahead. Is 2010 too soon for you to see that 8.5%?
Yeah, I think so, because you've got two things really going on here. One is that business is doing a superb job of cutting costs, promoting productivity. The third quarter numbers were extraordinary for the midst of a recession. And at the same time, consumers are retrenching. They're cutting back on spending. Christmas sales are going to be very critical, in my view, to whether consumers have really crossed a watershed and have finished 25 years of borrowing and spending and are on a saving spree.
Gary, you've been pessimistic about the prospects for 2010, 2011 for some time now. Have the recent data releases we've got from the federal government, many of which beat expectations, including the Labor Department report on jobs, made you any more optimistic about how quickly we might pull out of this dive? No,
not really. And bear in mind that when you say expectations, if you go back to 2007 and even into 2008, the expectations were up here and the reality was here. Now the expectations are, you know, they used to call it sandbagging. You always underestimate, you're always going to be better off than you thought you were. I mean, that's a game. You look at reality and not what people think, because it's a loaded dice.
You know, Ben Bernanke has said there are formidable headwinds there. You've highlighted residential housing as a weak spot here. Also, the cutbacks in benefits that consumers are experiencing, driving that fear of parting with their cash. What's the thing that for 2010 worries you the most?
It's really the consumer. Consumers, they say, they spent 25 years from the early 80s until a couple of years ago reducing their saving rate, increasing their borrowing rate, increasing their share of government of spending out of GDP from 62% to 70%. I think now they've crossed a watershed for three reasons. One is they run out of borrowing power. They pull the money out of their houses. They don't trust stocks to send their kids through college and take care of early retirement. Secondly, the post-war babies need to save, and they haven't. And third, people are really worried about losing their jobs. Unemployment is a serious problem. And I think that has caused a very distinct change in attitudes. And
I think that fear you highlighted is that intangible. No matter where the unemployment rate is, the idea of being scared of losing your job is a powerful force.
Oh, it sure is.
Thank you so much, Gary, for joining us.